Welcome back to the Talking Hedge. I'm Josh Kincaid, and this is your Cannabis Business Podcast. Today, we're going to be talking about the most important things to know when buying CBD. On the line with us today is Dan Kimmis, our CBD correspondent with Good CBD Products, who's going to tell us a little bit about a CBD market he just happened to run into in a very trendy area of Seattle. So Benzinga has an article titled The 3 Most Important Things to Know When Buying CBD. And this can probably translate into other rare cannabinoids like CBG and some other stuff we'll get into. But the cannabidiol, or CBD, is trending, reaching out to almost every industry. We've seen beer with Constellation Brands throwing $4 billion into it. And then Canada just announced that they are not going to allow THC-infused gummies and some other products. Tincture, they're not going to allow because of the kids. And so understanding that there is some hype and some misinformation, we're going to dive into the things that you do need to know. So the first thing you need to know about CBD is how is it processed? So there's currently 3 main methods for turning cannabis into CBD oil. There's a supercritical carbon dioxide, or CO2, then there's a hydrocarbon extraction, and then ethanol extraction. There's a lot more, actually, but those are the main kind of components. And so to understand maybe what's the best for you is to understand how these methods work. So CO2 is really popular because it's clean and natural, but the viscosity is not very kind to the plant. It's kind of like a tornado, and it just whips through, destroys or rips apart all of the components, and then throws them back together in the post-production. So it's not the most natural, but it is maybe the most efficient and maybe the most clean way to ingest or consume relative to other processing. And Dan, I know you've been involved with an asthmatic inhaler process, and so it definitely depends on how it's processed and how clean it is, and how the consumer wants to take it.
Testing, right? And this is the thing, is I would even dispute the article in that. To me, the most important thing about CBD is there actually any, right? There's so much rigmarole and goofiness in the market, Chronic. So brief reminder, I'm the Talking Hedge's field correspondent. I go into the field and essentially measure the CBD market. And then a common issue is first just straight up flat counterfeit product. No CBD. You give the dog the biscuit. How do you know? How do you actually know, right? And then after that, the whole thing of, was it processed well and clean? Really, the only way to truly know is to test. This is why I like sites like CBD Cop and some of these others that essentially do a lot of A/B testing. Go buy the product in a couple locations, right? Have some ordered in online, go buy some from the store, test both of them, those kinds of things. Because again, ultimately right now, that buzzword, those 3 letters, CBD, I've seen them used everywhere in the last few days, essentially as just a giant marketing ploy, right? And so, the 3 most important things to me, number 1 is it actually CBD, Chronic?
Right. I'm not really sure how the consumer is going to know that, but at least understanding the types of processes could help. And I think supercritical is a really popular way up here in Washington, where their products are looking, like a little bit like butter or wax. So they contain the lipids or byproducts with fats and waxes. In Oregon, though, we're seeing a lot of hydrocarbon extraction. They use propane, PHO, propane hash oil, butane. And so a lot of those options aren't really allowed or available up here, or maybe not used in Washington. And so it creates a different effect, a different product. And I think it's just kind of up to the consumer choices. There's also an ethanol extraction that's done by soaking the plant. Just like a hydrocarbon, it doesn't require the heat during the extraction. So different levels of heat might be used to purify the final product. And so all of those things are options that you might want to try for a different result.
Ooh, at the Ballard Market you were mentioning, right? I saw some interesting stuff. For instance, somebody using isolated CBD, so just the CBD, and then rebuilding a whole plant profile using isolated botanical terpenes. So rather, so go out, measure what the hemp looked like. Okay, how much myrcene was in here? Great. Go get the myrcene from something else, right? bring it back, put it with the CBD, rebuild the entire profile, not just the myrcene, right? And that way there's no THC in there, right? So some very interesting things with regards to how did I end up actually getting my CBD, and what was it? I mean, a purist would say, well, that's not, again, I mean, just because it's the profile doesn't mean, and yet I've talked to people in the field who would say, well, that's brilliant. So again, hey, pick a day, right?
You
Tell
also
me more about
recently
this, Mark.
visited the Oregon State Fair and saw some interesting branding for CBD where it said CBD free. So people are using CBD as a marketing ploy, whether they're selling diapers or toilet paper or otherwise. Maybe there's a group of people who don't like CBD, or maybe just having those three letters is enough for people to zoom in and find out what it is. So it's interesting.
They got me, Chronic. They got me. I saw the CBD. I'm like, beeline, right? And again, at some level, right? This is where the market is filled with hype. This is where I guess I agree, certainly. How's a consumer going to know if the product is actually CBD or not? They're going to know because it's going to work or not, right? But
Right.
in the end, you're seeing CBD everywhere. Between the county fair, right? Go to the county fair just to see if there's somebody hustling CBD. Find them, march the whole dang fair, and then finally find not one but two crew that are hard hustling and really good, right? Really good. One of them has a 20,000 acre hemp farm. I mean, how do you even do that, right? Brother, this is the thing that you referenced earlier that was so zany. The very market that we'd called 10 days before and asked, can we sell CBD here? And they said, no. Okay. Look over, and they're bannering the thing. They've got a big banner up that says, hemp market. I dang near crashed envy. Okay, I'm driving. I'm in the van, and I'm all like, okay. I parked. I lurked. I basically got the behind-the-scenes story of essentially a public market yielding to market pressure, the need to have more customers, and deciding, okay, yeah, we'll sell CBD. We're actually going to make a special area, and then brought in some vendors, awesome vendors. We're going to start vending there. Some of the different sponsors I work with, the booths were busy. The public wants CBD.
Right. And back to your other point, the second most important thing to know when buying CBD is about regulation or the lack thereof. You mentioned that your first point might want to be to know that there is actually CBD in there. And so this article goes on to say that the rapidly evolving sector has left lawmakers and regulators scrambling to catch up to the realities of the CBD products. And third-party testing is crucial to determine the absence of harmful chemicals, the content of CBD, and other plant compounds to ensure that the levels of THC and CBD are within the legal maximum, or at least present with CBD.
Oh, yesterday I was in essentially a CBD boutique. Okay, so imagine a traditional cannabis store, except entirely CBD focused. Okay, they had flower. Okay, CBD flower. And the salesperson engaged with me and said, well, this is legal flower. It has less than 0.3% THC. And then I said, I looked at it and it looked really nice. Okay. And I'm like, well, how do you know that? And her response was, well, they test. Well, I know what goes on in the labs. Okay. I know how the testing works. And there's a variance in the testing that's really broad. Right. And so the whole thing of like, well, yeah, they're going to have to figure out some rules. They're going to have to figure out some rules.
Right. It's about transparency, where and how the plants are grown, processed, and tested. So that needs to continue to be a major focus for consumers and drive the way companies interact with consumers across the platforms, including online presence, educational materials, and events. And then I would go on to say that to stay away from products that are in the Walgreens, CVS, and Rite Aid until you know what's in there. Having an isolate isn't really going to do anything for anybody. It's been called hot dog water on this podcast before. And so understanding what you're getting and what the benefits are is going to be good, because if you drink something that you think has vitamin C and it doesn't really have any effects, you just kind of have to trust that it's going to work, isn't really working in this industry with brands that are just coming out with products that might not have all of the compounds that they say they do. When tested, that's being revealed that they are absent in some cases entirely of CBD.
On the ground, right? Honestly, if you have just isolate in your product, okay, which is just the CBD molecule, you can lay some claims. Hey, woo, we've got CBD, okay? And you're much safer legally, okay? There's a lot about doing it that way where it's just harder to break the law. It's isolated. You know that there's no THC in there. There's no potential that there's THC in there if it's true isolate.
Understanding what's in it is going to be important for each of these consumers to give them peace of mind. And so the final, I guess, important thing to know when buying CBD is what's in it, right? So the plant material, where is it coming from? Understanding the selecting the source material is an important step to determining the final product. So these customers need that peace of mind. And in order to understand what they're taking, CBD is relatively new, and so it can be misunderstood as maybe a snake oil if it's got too many claims, which just got hit by the FDA. So that'll probably slow that down a little bit. But you have to worry about heavy metals, pesticides, potentially products that don't have CBD. All of those things, without reputable brands, it's difficult to determine what's in it, how it's processed, and all of those things. So it's important to know when buying CBD.
Well, the last note I'd say is, this is why today, work with your local homies, right? Work with your farmer's market guy, work with your person where you can actually see the small business owner, right? And they're making the product and stuff. And maybe tomorrow it'll be different, maybe. I've seen some marvelous things from real CBD, made with love kind of products, right? Or full plant extract products. And at the same time, so I guess it is on the user. There's some wonderful things out there. And like so many things, careful what you buy off the internet there, homie.
And with that, we're going to wrap this one up. I'm Josh Kincaid. This is The Talking Hedge. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, or don't, and I'm out.